Please note that though this is a spoiler-free review of the subject, I do spoil the series and/or franchise leading up to this particular entry. Put off by how long this video is, don't worry, I try to jam-pack my videos with as much content and as much detail as I possibly can. Anything I feel I can comment on and that I feel you might be interested in, I pretty much put in the video. I try not to repeat myself and talk fairly fast. I either have or will cover other parts of this franchise, and this video either is or will be linked below. I'm not going to restate here what I did or will say in the other video. These videos get long enough as it is. And here we go. Let's just get the right notes ready. Now, Justice League, the additional the notes review kind of intro. I'm awake. I know, I did not think it would happen either. Huge difference. So this is the first time, let's see if it'll be the last time, that I've done this. It's been a week since I watched and vlogged about Justice League, but since I was so sleepy at the time, I skipped a bunch of notes. The ones I had made before, not any of the ones I made during watching, and the ones that I didn't think were as, but I did still want to do them. I was really frustrated that I was too sleepy, so I vlog currently exclusively Saturdays. It's possible I'll make exceptions, but I didn't hear. So even though it's been a week and the movie is not so fresh in my memory anymore, and again, as I said, unfortunately it's a very forgettable movie. Here I go. On my own, going down the only road I've ever known. Like a drifter, I was born to walk alone. Now, I couldn't be doing this unless I either didn't do another review this week, or, as is the case this time, if that video didn't, that's a double negative. If that video also ended up very short. In this case was the Earthworm Jim 2 Thoughts video, which I knew was going to end up short. For the Earthworm Jim 1, I tried to think of more stuff. In this case, I don't know exactly what I'll be doing. There are more videos coming up that might only be thoughts, but maybe I'll have more longer thoughts to say. Now, I hope you had a Merry Thanksgiving, suffered through the bland turkey, ate all your racist relatives, the whole works. Yeah, that came out right. And Black Friday's over, and the blood, teeth, and broken dreams are all still being mopped up. On plot. Now, I did already talk some about the reshoots, but other details on them. This had extensive reshoots. The movie has basically been made twice, some said, and the reshoots are in part, one of Zack Snyder's daughters committed suicide, so he took a break from filming, and my heart goes out to him. And Joss Whedon took over for him at the end of May this year. Now, Warner Brothers stated, this is from the IMDb trivia, that Joss will direct and write in the same style as Zack, so there won't be any tone shifts or obvious changes in style. However, Joss Whedon controversially fired Zack Snyder's composer Junkie XL and replaced him with Danny Elfman. And as I talked about in the other video, you can really tell which of them did. I forget exactly who maybe it was the Joe Blow video review where he said, you know, Joss Whedon does not have the visual, you know, panache of Zack Snyder, and that's true, and that's also a place where you could see it, but I would say that a lot of the Whedon parts are a lot better than the Snyder parts. I'm not sure that, I think at this point, just maybe Warner Brothers need to accept that maybe Snyder can't deliver what, you know, audiences want and what critics will approve of, you know, speak well of in this kind of, you know, I mean, I maintain that 300 is a perfect movie. I would not change a thing. And I don't, if you don't like it, I don't really blame you. I'm not going to go into detail about it here. I did videos on it. You know, several of the annotations on my Batman v Superman video go into detail on it, but on that he did perfect, and that was the exact kind of thing that he is ideal for. And a lot of people did like Watchmen, and neither of them were, I think, you know, both got some really harsh criticism, but and they're not, I mean, he doesn't really make movies for critics either, but with those he satisfied a lot of audiences, and he has, I mean, he satisfies some audiences, maybe yeah, a lot, but there are also a lot he's alienated with his work in the DCEU. And really, I mean, outside of Wonder Woman, which still does have problems, there isn't really a movie in the DCEU so far that is genuinely just utterly amazing and doesn't have, you know, where you don't have to say, I know this, this, and this, but I still like it, you know, I mean, yeah, I love 300, and there's a lot to love about a movie like Watchmen, and there are definitely aspects I love of there isn't a DCU movie so far where I don't love at least one aspect of it, but, you know, where, like, comparatively, I mean, there are, yeah, there are other major movies where not a single aspect just genuinely, completely, anyway, I don't think he's really the right person for this, and I think he continues to prove that. I just heard that apparently one of the things that Snyder wanted with this, and originally filmed but was cut, was that Batman wanted to sacrifice, he wanted to die in battle because of what happened with Superman, and just, yeah, I mean, it's almost as if he doesn't understand that this is supposed to be the start of a major franchise. I mean, excuse me, I'm not saying that they need to go, you know, almost 10 years, as, I mean, yeah, you know, in you know, next year, the MCU will have gone for 10 consecutive years. I'm not saying that the DCU would, I mean, I suppose I could be snarky and say it definitely won't from how it's been so far, but, you know, maybe they never wanted that, although it looks like Warner Brothers kind of wanted it to go on and on. You know, when you look at how many, you know, just go to the Wikipedia page and see all the projects that are being worked on in some capacity that they want to do, you know. But yeah, it's as if Snyder thinks that every movie in the series should feel like it might be the last one, and that the series shouldn't last very long at all. And that's not a bad way to do a series, but it's not really what you want from this kind. I mean, that's the thing, as others have pointed out, he keeps acting like he's still doing Watchmen. Watchmen was always meant to be just a one. I mean, I know that, you know, there were made like prequel comics detailing the work of Night Owl 2 and Rorschach, and I get that because they do talk about having worked by then. We don't see that in the real Watchmen comic, but I can't imagine even reading a single page of that, because what Alan Moore did was complete, and what Alan Moore did was specifically supposed to go in and say, you know, maybe you don't really want these heroes. I mean, is this really what we want from our heroes? Which is not what the main writer. I mean, Frank Miller does really like dark material, but when you read Sin City, you can tell he meant for it to be an overall. I mean, with each of the stories, you can read just that one, but if you read all of them, they build more of a universe and give you more details about the various characters. Clearly, Sin City is meant to be an overall series, whereas Watchmen is a very complete work. You know, once you read, I think it was originally released as 6 books, or maybe it's just complete. The first time I read it, it was just 1 book, you know, years after it all came out. But yeah, that's supposed to be that way, and Snyder acts like he's still doing that, and 300 was supposed to be that way, and just, that's not what we want from the Justice League. It's just not. You know, maybe, yeah, that's also, maybe if this was like, we had a great Justice League movie a while back, because that's what Watchmen is. It's not the first time you see characters like this. If it was, I could understand people being frustrated with it, but it's specifically supposed to be, this character is a lot like this other character, and if we took them, if we went like, you know, realistically, seriously about it, then this, and this would probably be true. You know, you have the character where both the mother and the daughter are costumed heroes, and the daughter is really resentful of the mother for having raised her like that. And I mean, I don't think I really read was it maybe like Black Canary or something? I didn't read the original, which it is satirizing, but I can imagine that doesn't have something like that, which is a realistic way to look at it. You know, yeah, it's like, you know, an aging actress raising her daughter to be an actress. They end up resenting each other. Yeah, and all of Watchmen is like that, and that's not what we want from the main Justice League. And another thing is he's trying to do the Nolan Batman kind of thing, and the Nolan Batman was also always meant to be, you know, I mean, when I first heard that Nolan was going to be doing Batman, I was like, I freaking love Memento. I don't see how he's going to do a hero story, though. I mean, if they had said Christopher Nolan is going to do, like, let's see, what would make sense for a Christopher Nolan hero, like comparatively, when, you know, yeah, other movies of his, you know, yeah, when I heard that he was doing The Prestige and Inception, those sound like Nolan movies, you know, and I do love what he did with Batman, but that's, again, I mean, when you really look at it, that Batman did not have a very long career, and again, that's very realistic. One of the first things we find out in part 3 is he was physically injured by this, and that's, I mean, for one thing, we also do literally see that. We see, you know, these really bad things happening to him at the hands of his enemies, but it's also just, when you look at, say, someone who fights in tournaments, like, you know, some kind of martial art, you know, they also get hurt. You know, the longer they keep doing it, and the more they do it, and the more, you know, and yeah, imagine if someone was doing that every single night and fighting, you know, yeah, fighting enemies that use that don't play fair and such. Of course he's going to end up hurt. And we knew from the start that this Batman was not going to be part of the Justice League. It wasn't going to be a major franchise. It was going to be 3 movies that explore this character. And yeah, that seems like Snyder is trying to do that with the Justice League, and that's just not what we want. It's, you know, yeah, I don't think he's the right person for it. And I mean, maybe you know, I saw a great, yeah, the college humor, I think it was Andrew Bridgman again, did, you know, talked about how disastrous of this opening weekend it was for Justice League. I think yeah, anyway, yeah. And like it ends with this meme of, you know, Warner Brothers talking to Zack Snyder. Kevin Feige built a cinematic universe in a cave with a box of scraps. Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not Kevin Feige, you know, and yeah, that's it. They need a Kevin Feige, and it's clearly not Zack Snyder. You know, I've heard some people say Paul Dini. I think I could, yeah. I mean, just based, I don't know all of Dini's work, but just based on what he did with the Arkham games, yeah, I could totally see how he could, yeah. But that was not part of my notes, so let me return to, but yeah, that's, I couldn't have said that a week ago, so, you know, that's, now, this movie, again, IMDb trailer, this movie's initially going to be split into 2 parts, Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, an alleged singular continuing storyline, but by the time filming the, yeah, by the time of filming, the idea of the film being in 2 parts seemed to have quietly gone away, and is now rumored to be 2 self-contained movies with 2 related but separate plots. And I think I know what they're going to do, and I think it's probably a good, I don't think it's a good idea to do a 2-part this early in the franchise. I mean, it's one thing to do the team-up movie this early in the franchise before we've gotten much in the way of solo movies. You know, Batman didn't even get a proper solo movie yet, and yeah, you know, one of the founding members, but doing a 2-parter would be probably a bad idea. I mean, honestly, and again, this pains me to say, I don't know if we're going to get a part 2. I don't know how long they're going to, I mean, apparently the movie stands to lose the studio $100 million, and that's, I mean, yeah, at some point they're probably going to stop and, you know, pause and say, can we even, is this worth the, are we going to get a return on investment with this? And yeah, you know, I don't think they're going to call off Aquaman, because that one is well underway. But might it be the last one? I don't know. I can't imagine that it'll be a long time before we see the, you know, part 2 of the Justice League. That really, yeah. Now, yes, although Justice League was initially announced as a 2-part film, with the second part releasing 2 years after the first, Snyder announced in June 2016 that they would be 2 distinct separate films, not one film split into 2 parts, both being stoned stories that stand alone. That was from Wikipedia. Oh, let's see. Huh. I accidentally copied that note in twice, evidently. Now, I was wondering if the Batmobile was going to do more Just Cause type stuff, like in Batman v Superman, you know, attaching another car to his, using a tether, smacking them into stuff, including other cars, running into other cars, etc. And I do realize that running into other cars, that, you know, you do that in Grand Theft Auto too, but you really do it in, you know, Just Cause, everything's a weapon, so... You know, in the Warehouse 2, he uses a tether to smack an object into a person to hurt them, at least once. And he uses the grapple gun to, for example, pull someone closer in action scenes a few times in this. And he uses guns again. I don't know, at some point someone's going to have to, like, you know, I remember that in at least one of the Dark Knight, I think it might be the Dark Knight Rises, you know, abridged script. They're like, you know, oh, Batman who never uses guns, used a gun. You mean, yeah, the one that, like, kills the motorcycle? That's not, it's clearly not, like, it doesn't fire bullets, you know, it fires some kind of charge, some kind of energy thing that kills the engine in the motorcycle, so that the people on the motorcycle don't die, but that he stops them, because just chasing them forever is just, silly. You know, he's got a place where he can stop the motorcycle without them getting particularly hurt. Like, you know, it's not like in the middle of jumping between two platforms or something. And then, you know, he also, oh, but he put a gun on the bat pod. Yeah, because sometimes he has to shoot things out of the way. It's not supposed to shoot people. You know, it's really not. It's Nolan's Batman is consistently against guns, using guns on people, you know, using guns to hurt people. Now, I was wondering if this movie was going to have any homophobia, you know, the Dawn of the Dead remake, although I guess maybe it could be in the script, but if so, James Gunn sure got woke between that and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but that could be the case. 300, added by Snyder, you know, very clearly, again, look at the comic itself. You know, there's a lot he added. And, you know, Xerxes, he literally said he's scary because of these stereotypical gay traits. Watchmen, again, added by Snyder. Among other things, the villain's very clearly coded gay, which was just hinted at in the original. And it's part of making him, you know, it's very clearly used to make him seem more villainous because he's gay, more othered. Now, I don't think there's any in Man of Steel, you know, if there is, I missed it on rewatches, and I don't think there's any in Batman v Superman. Meanwhile, the opening has that girl near the Metropolis Wayne building almost crushed by what appears to be the World Trade Center across. Sometimes I really don't know what Snyder is going for by using this iconic imagery. You know, I mean, with some of it, it seems like he's saying, you know, oh, if Superman had, you know, if Kal-El had been there, it wouldn't have gone down like that. You know, about these really awful real-life, you know, terrorist attacks and major natural disasters and such. But there, it's literally, go back and look. It's the Ground Zero cross. Yeah. Now, Snyder did not write those two, but he didn't write Dawn of the Dead either. And there, again, very clearly, the joke is on, you know, we're laughing at the gay character. We're not laughing at the homophobic character. And yeah. You probably know what scene I'm talking about. Now, Snyder helped write Wonder Woman and this, but not Man of Steel or BVS. And let's see. Now, a College Humor article, which I think was the one about why he was genuinely excited about Justice League. And, you know, again, I think it's that same, you know, comedian writer who since came out and said, you know, man, the movie, really did disappointing numbers. So, yeah. Now, what it ultimately comes down to is this: Snyder has a lot of ability as a filmmaker, but he works best when he's collaborating with others who can temper his less ideal instincts, having Jeff Johns working with him alongside Joss Whedon, and likely with some influence from Pat Jenkins, James Wan, Aquaman solo film can only spell good things. And yeah, like I said in the review, there are definitely good things. There are good course corrections from the rest of the DCU in this movie. Now, IMDb trivia: Danny Elfman used a bit of John Williams' Superman score in the film for a Superman scene, and yeah, I think that worked pretty well. And for the IMDb trivia, in addition to Danny Elfman bringing back the original 1978 Superman score theme, it's been heavily rumored during an interview where this was hinted at that Elfman will also bring back the score theme for Affleck scenes as the Batman from the 1989 film Batman. And again, works nicely. It's unknown whether or not Matt Reeves plans to continue to use the famous Batman 1989 theme score for his upcoming film noir style, The Batman Trilogy. Now, Lana Wachowski and Lily Wachowski were at one point considered to direct this film, and I could see that. I don't think that, I mean, at this point, Snyder has done so much to define the DCEU. I don't think you should go too far away. You know, at the end of the day, you have to, for the sake of, consistency. You have to have some Snyder, and I don't really see them imitating Snyder that much, and their style is very different from Snyder's. I mean, Snyder did an Alan Moore adaptation, and the Wachowskis, not direct, you know, they used James McTeague, but they very clearly, you know, they were backseat driving on that one. And yeah, they're very, very different movies. And you know, and for that, definitely Snyder's sensibilities are closer to those of Alan Moore's, even if Alan Moore probably hates me saying that. And I'm not saying he's gonna watch this video, but yeah, he probably, you know, both of them have scenes that are ripped right from the comic, but the Snyder one is very, you know, there's very little new. It changes a few things, but it doesn't add like entire new scenes or characters or such, where, you know, V for Vendetta is a very different. It just takes a few, and I mean, at the end of the day, it probably could. And that's also, I mean, if I recall, V for Vendetta, while called out for being very different, was more positively received. And I do think that it's a much more coherent overall film, and a, you know, with a lot of the problem with Watchmen is that it stays so close to the original. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, at the end of the day, honestly, maybe like 10, 20 years from now, if they're still making movies by then, or maybe if like someone comes along who has a very similar style to them, if they went ahead and did, like, you know, I don't know if they're gonna do more like entire universes, but if they just got to make just a Justice League movie, I'd be interested in watching that. Now, Zack Snyder, again, IMDb trivia, cites Seven Samurai as an influence on the film. That makes some sense. Now, I rewatched that movie for this. You know, I hope that Snyder wouldn't take stuff directly from that doesn't make sense, like it did with The Dark Knight Returns for Batman v Superman. Honestly, if this movie had the JLA symbol because Steppenwolf steals food from a village of poor farmers, I think I might howl with laughter in the theater. But honestly, there is like there are just a few things. I mean, there literally is a poor family who are being threatened by Steppenwolf, and the heroes have to save them. So there is a little bit, although that scene felt more like a Whedon scene, but yeah. Now, I also rewatched the original American remake of it, and I kid you not, by complete accident, I rewatched that the same day I rewatched the Married with Children Season 7 premiere. And for those that don't know, both that movie and that TV show episode are called Magnificent Seven. And yes, a remake of Seven Samurai, because even back then, Americans couldn't watch a non-American movie, no matter how excellent. Nope, gotta remake it. The original was already inspired by Westerns. To be fair, a lot of people were put off by the length of the original movie. Kurosawa, Tarkovsky, you lose so much by shortening and Americanizing their movies. I will not be doing videos on either of those amazing directors. I do not have the chops to do them justice. I've quite enjoyed the recent Renegade cut. I think you did call it Tarkovsky Month. Excellent videos. Now, I have not watched and don't intend to watch the sequels or the recent remake. Who makes sequels to a story like that? It's like Rocky. This was the last time the characters did something like this. Not for all of the characters in Magnificent Seven, but yeah. It makes no sense to keep going. I can't even imagine what things... Oh, hey, Michael Biehn is in the series. Huh. Well then, if I ever were to watch those, it would be so I had the background to watch the Michael Biehn TV series. Because I'd watch anything Michael Biehn had a role in. He has never let me down. I have not watched any TV shows about DC characters outside of a bunch of Smallville back when it first aired. And I think, I forget if I've said that before, but I praise Henry Cavill a lot for his Superman, even if the writing is sometimes bad for it. But I stand by, he is my favorite Superman since Christopher Reeves. However, I will say, Tom something in Smallville I also quite liked. He might have been my favorite until Cavill, but yeah, Cavill mops the floor with him. Now, I don't watch current TV shows anymore, and I haven't in years. Now, both Jalen movies are written by Chris Terrio, who also co-wrote BVS, and this one's also co-written by Joss Whedon. Now, yeah, Batman v Superman felt like Watchmen, you know, superhuman, doubting if he should be saving people. Batman feels like Rorschach, and I was wondering if this was going to, and yeah, some parts of it kind of do, and you know, parts of it also felt like 300. You know, these long takes on action with relatively little camera movement. And parts of Man of Steel also feels like it has 300. Yeah, feels like 300, and you know, Zod being shouty and monologue-y, and Watchmen with sudden flashbacks to various parts of the main major character's life. And yeah, let's see, 300 in this. Not... Yeah, some of the action scenes are, you also go on for a while, and the camera doesn't necessarily cut that much and such. Now, meanwhile, no two Snyder movies before this feel like they're just the same movie, and this does not break that trend. That is something I will definitely say about him. If you show the you know, that's also something I'd say about, for example, the 3 Matrix movies. You know, if you show a clip of one of Snyder's movies or one of the 3 Matrix movies, even to someone who hasn't watched them for a while, or maybe someone who's never watched them before, they would still be able to tell that these are separate movies. And with something like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League, like, and with the 3 Matrix films, I would say they would probably be able to say which order the 3 movies came out in, and if, you know, because you can tell they're building onto, and they're going bigger whilst using similar elements and such. You know, when you see Superman fighting one other character, you know, you can tell that he's using some of the same methods, some of the same moves in fighting, but it's not yeah, you know, not just because they don't have the same exact powers and such. Not only, yeah. Now, Batman v Superman does a ton of baffling things with iconic characters, imagery, and the like, even in the first 20 minutes. This one does not really, it does a much better job than the DCU up to this point, except for Wonder Woman, and some things it does as well as Wonder Woman. And yeah, some of the action is done in long takes with camera moves little and or gracefully, which Snyder likes to do his action like that. And some of it is also the Whedon. It reminded me a lot of Avengers actions. You know, the climax of the first Avengers and the opening and the climax of the second Avengers movie. Now, let's see. And, you know, well choreographed with lots of standout badass moments too, which again Snyder likes, but you know, he's far from the only one. But yeah, there's definitely some of that. Now, Batman v Superman title fight feels like moves were thought up based on what would look cool, where, you know, the Hulkbuster versus Hulk fight feels like Hulk fights the way the character would in that situation, and Tony counters with what he and Bruce knew Hulk could and would do, and Hulk counters back. And I would say certainly in parts of this, they fight in the way that most makes sense based on their skills and abilities and like their personality and such. And they think of ones that also look cool, like in the Hulkbuster versus Hulk fight. And, you know, the Gatling guns on the Batmobile are used, and, you know, at least this time it is being used to kill creatures that, you know, I mean, there's no, it's, you know, you don't jail a parademon and try to, you know, rehabilitate it. You know, those, yeah, you know, if they're a threat, you might have to kill them. And, you know, at least one of the other vehicles also fires at least one projectile. And let's see. And something I find some people, when talking about Snyder's work, I think it's important to note that Snyder's style is calling attention to itself. You're not supposed to forget you're watching a movie. It's supposed to feel like an experience, not reality. And very frequently, that experience is the reading of a comic book. You know, try to get your hands on a copy of 300, the movie and the comic, and look at the panels while watching the movie, and you'll see it really is you know, you can already see it from just the way the camera moves that, okay, this is not, yeah, this is emulating reading a comic book. You know, you have that one shot where, like, let's see if we get it. Yeah, you know, you've got Leonidas here, and he gradually moves all the way, and sometimes the camera will go a little out, a little in, or a little ahead, or a little back, or the like. But the camera keeps filming him from that angle, and the action just keeps happening from that one angle. Yeah, that's a lot like looking, you know, across panels of a comic book. And you know, and then you have something like Man of Steel, where, and this is, again, this is something that certainly the nostalgia critic, I forget if Angry Joe also, you know, went into that, but when you see when you're seeing Superman fly, you know, among other things, when you see, like, flying, excuse me, there will be you know, the camera will, like, follow it, and there'll be, like, these sudden zoom-ins and such, and that does what handheld cameras always do, make you feel like you're there, and in some cases like you're trying to film what's going on with the camera. So you're not holding the camera completely still, and sometimes you'll zoom in on something you really want to see. You know, I mean, compare it to how actual found footage movies are done. They also have these zoom-ins when there's something really especially compelling happening. And yeah, when you watch the flying in Man of Steel, it's like you're, you know, you are holding a camera and you, holy crap, there's this Superman guy flying, so you're trying to follow it, and then maybe zoom in to get a closer shot of it and such. And, you know, you could argue that it's the wrong approach, but a lot of people seem to just not understand, or not acknowledge at least, that that's what he's doing. When you hear people, you know, Jay, in case of Threat of Thunder, when you hear people actually saying, you know, series, I think Renegade Cut actually was one of them, saying, you know, why would you do these, you know, the speed ramping, that, you know, it completely ruins the, you know, it makes you realize that what you're watching isn't real. 300 from start to finish is clearly not real. You know, it's hinted at the very start, and then it's completely solidified at the very end, which you know, well, I suppose I could spoil in this since, anyway, I'm not right now, at least. You are watching the retelling of a legend, of like a myth. This is, something happened with these basic characters, and you know, the 300 Spartans fought thousands of Persians, and everything is embellished upon. And note especially the scenes where the character who's in the movie, who's telling the story, again, this is revealed very early on, that character is not present for all the scenes, so when he's talking about something that he clearly wasn't there for, he embellishes even further. Scenes that only involve Persians, for example, are completely out there, and yeah, that's the idea. You know, again, you can argue that it's the wrong approach. I think it's the exact right approach for something like 300, because, you know what? Some people, I'm sure, want a very realistic recreation of what happened back then. But if you ever thought 300 was going to be that, you did not do your homework. The moment you heard it was based on a comic book by Frank Miller, you should have known it was not going to be that. And, you know, some people hate it because they're super into the real event. Again, it's not made for you, and it was never meant to. And yeah, I mean, again, I've gone into almost everything I want to ever say about 300, but yeah, in other videos, yeah, you know, his movies, you're not supposed to forget that this is fiction, that this is something you're taking in rather than it being reality. You know, I mean, let's see, Dawn of the Dead, there's maybe at least a few parts that genuinely kind of feel like reality, but I mean, I suppose, yeah, the opening credit scene, for example, could kind of feel like you're the one watching all this stuff on TV, or, you know, but in general, he's not. It's a style. It's not supposed to be, yeah. And again, certainly in parts of this movie, that really works. Now there's a line in one of the trailers like, you know, go to heck and fight the devil, and I was wondering if, you know, they and we would go there early and stay there for long, which would distinguish it from early MCU. And really, before Guardians of the Galaxy, no one MCU movie spent all that long away from Earth, or at the very least Asgard, which is not as exotic as many other worlds are. And I don't think the line is in the finished movie, but I do think I know more or less what it's referring to, unless what it was referring to was simply cut. And no, it's fairly late in, but we do see these very otherworldly places from very early on, including Themyscira and Atlantis. Now, but yeah, Man of Steel is filmed handheld, Batman v Superman is filmed with Snyder's usual sense of style, frame composition, etc. As seen in 300, Watchmen, Sucker Punch. And here it is the sense of style. And also, you know, I think also Renegade Cut talks about that the handheld in the rest of Man of Steel, that, you know, in regular scenes, that it shouldn't be there. It's distracting. I think an argument could be made for that. I don't really think handheld was the right choice, not for a Superman movie. But again, it was a very... It's not like he just woke up one morning and said, hey, let's do handheld, which appears to be the case for Paul W.S. Anderson's Resident Evil movies. It's like, oh, hey, let's film this on 3D cameras. Oh, hey, these 3D cameras do slow motion really well. Let's fill them with slow motion. Oh, hey, a lot of people are doing this handheld camera thing. I bet I can do that. It's just, yeah, you know, with Snyder, it's a decision, and you can disagree with that decision, but it's just kind of silly to say, you know, oh look, this isn't very realistic at all. It's not supposed to. It's just, you know, you're never going to get anywhere if you assume that it's supposed to be realistic. You know, his style communicates immediately that it's not supposed to be realistic. Now, some people say this would retcon the DCEU, and, you know, I've already mentioned some. It definitely does with some of the things, and most of those things it's for the better, but it does try to go too light, too quickly, and for too long compared to the other movies. I'd say Wonder Woman did a much better job of, you know, juggling these lighter moments, which the movie definitely has a lot of, with these more dark elements of the DCEU. You know, if you don't watch all of Wonder Woman, for a while you might feel like this isn't very DCEU at all, but then excuse me, then there's maybe a few major things that really tell you, okay, this is DCEU. Now, I was wondering if this would go for emotional moments that it didn't earn, like Steve Shives points out. Batman v Superman has those at the end. I would say so with some of the backstory. We're supposed to really get into Cyborg's tragic backstory, and Aquaman, I don't know if it's really supposed to be tragic, at least not at this point, not with what they give us, but it is supposed to explain why this character is this more brooding kind of, you know, and I don't think it really, again, you know, part of the idea is he's supposed to be the DCU's Wolverine. When you see Wolverine, you know, in most of the comics I've read, and certainly in the movies, you believe, okay, this guy's a drifter, and this is why he's a drifter, you know. When he is. There are some of the movies where he's not, but... Now, you know, excuse me. I don't think that was Renegade Cut. I think that was Folding Ideas. Pointed out that Man of Steel didn't really understand setup, payoff, pacing, and chronological jumps. It tries to use all of these things, but it messes it up. And really, some is in this, but it's also difficult to tell how much of that was simply cut out, so that, yeah. I did hear, maybe it was, sometimes I forget the source for these things, but I think maybe Feminist Frequency on the Freakcast maybe talked about that, you know, some of these characters are introduced with these kind of tragic, you know, the first thing you see Flash is this tragic father backstory, and Cyborg is also just immediately you have this, you know, yeah, and it doesn't, it's too soon to try to do that. You don't even know this character yet, and already the movie is pulling on our heartstrings for that character, and yeah, I would have to agree with them on that. Now, it's been said countless times already, but it will never not be worth repeating. In Batman v Superman, why didn't Superman, when arriving at the Bat Signal, where Batman awaits, say, Lex Luthor has manipulated us both. He's planning something awful. He asked my mother if you can save her, we can both stop him. At that point, I will gladly discuss with you any grievance you have with me. Heck, if you insist on us fighting, we can even do it at that time. If I can say it this fast and smoothly, as a mere human, even if I am a spectacular specimen of one, someone with superhuman speed and muscle flexibility certainly can. And it's not like, man, it's not like Superman is stupid. You know, he realizes this situation, and he knows that he doesn't want to fight, and yet That's so easily what ends up happening because he won't communicate. Now, one mother box was briefly shown in Batman v Superman, but went unexplained. We just saw a fuse with Cyborg's body, and I do think they were explained decently here, and you know, some scenes they have emotional weight to them. But yeah, you know, there's so much less build-up than for the Infinity Stones, and you know, when I heard that all of them were actually going to be on Earth, I was like, what makes Earth so special in the universe? How geocentric, but it is explained in the movie. And let's see. Characters, major. Now, I realize that this is taking a while. I am on page 3 of 12 of my notes, so I may be trying to go faster. Let's see. Now, the film is almost all action, too little story, too little character moments. The moments we got are great, but it needed more. And that's part of why it's such a forgettable movie. Now, Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne Batman, the leader and benefactor of the group of metahumans, with the socialite and the owner of Wayne Enterprises, who also dedicates himself to protecting Gotham City from its criminal underworld, is a highly trained masculinity equipped with many powerful tools and weapons. Now, after Man of Steel, people including Doug and Rob Walker said that Batman didn't kill and Superman did, so how could Superman have some sort of moral high ground? Well, Snyder fixed that by having Batman murder dozens of people instead of quote-unquote only letting them be killed by not caring if they get hit by debris and the like, as the DCU Superman does. Now, in one of the trailers, and I'm almost certain this isn't in the movie, Batman jumps out of the mobile base and lands on his feet. The shot is identical to one in Watchmen of Night Owl 2 jumping out in Archie and landing. And yeah, you know, I think Nerdist News talked about how that was almost definitely an intentional, yeah. And you know, the crack people, you know, talked about, you know, Batman says Superman gave people hope when, and certainly Batman doesn't feel that way about him. And this is one of the, it's possible he was cut, but this is one of the fairly few Batman starring movies not to have Patrick Leahy in it anywhere, at least according to IMDb as I record this. And again, I say Batman starring. You know, he's not, I'm almost certain he's not in Suicide Squad, but that was only a cameo. And, you know, I was wondering if this Batman was still barely holding on to sanity with psychotic breaks and tons of dream sequences. And no, those appear to be completely gone. And I was wondering if Batman would still be killing human beings. And, you know, yeah, basically not. But, you know, it helps that the goons are now parademons instead of humans. You know, I just rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. You know, this was only the second time I watched it. Love it. Got way more into the emotional stuff this time. And, you know, really, yeah, I don't know why it didn't quite work. I may just not have been quite in the right place to. I maintain that Wonder Woman also does amazing, and did amazing even on the first viewing, but yeah, I will admit that definitely Guardians of the Galaxy 2 does great. Now, Rocket uses two distinct non-lethal weapons against groups of enemies: injection needles that can be electrically charged via a switch, and devices that throw people into the air. Those are maybe a little too futuristic for at least this Batman, but you know, why couldn't Batman v Superman have followed that same approach otherwise? You know, in this kind of situation, I almost always bring up Splinter Cell Blacklist because I kind of love that game, if I admit that there are some issues with it. You know, the sleeping gas and the sticky, you know, yeah, sticky shockers and such. I don't see why Batman can't have something like that. You know, it's not impossible for us to buy that he would have it, and it's not difficult to visually communicate that that's what it is. I suppose something that electrically, like, zaps them and such, they might be worried that, you know, there are gadgets like that in, certainly in Batman Forever. I forget if Batman and Robin has it, and, you know, in that they're silly, and it's like, yeah, and I guess, I mean, there's that one that zaps one of Joker's goons when he tries to take the mask off Batman. So, you know, they maybe also don't want to be too close, excuse me, to that. Excuse me. Now, in his review of The Dark Knight Rises, Blockbuster Buster points out that Batman manipulates those he works with. You know, he's extremely paranoid. That's why he only trains children to be his sidekicks, and he works with the goody-goody Superman and Wonder Woman because he can manipulate them. And, you know, really, you know, neither of them in the DCU are entirely goody-goody, especially Superman, but I'd say there are scenes that are probably meant to be him manipulating them, but I wasn't quite a fan. Now, I have seen Affleck in Good Will Hunting, Phantoms, Where It Was the Bomb, Armageddon, Cookie Sex, Shakespeare in Love, Dogma, Reindeer Games, Pearl Harbor, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Sum of All Fears, Daredevil, Shigley, Paycheck, State of Play, The Town, Argo, and the DCEU. Now, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, an undaunted and compassionate award-winning journalist for the Daily Planet and the primary love interest for Kent. I've seen Adams in Drop Dead Gorgeous, Catch Me If You Can, and the DCEU. And Gal Gadot as Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, an antiquities dealer and acquaintance of Wayne, who's actually an immortal Amazonian warrior that is the crown princess of Themyscira and daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus, who possesses superhuman attributes and abilities inherited from her parents. When I saw the Amazonians, you know, try to stop Steppenwolf from getting the mother box, I have to wonder, why didn't the Amazonians encase the mother box entirely in stone? We see Steppenwolf's axe cut through stone, so he would still get it without them expecting him to. But instead, it's this open room, albeit with walls all around. Again, maybe it gives off energy that means you can't do that. That needed to be explained. Just a single line would do. You know, just as the, you know, when you see the teleporting, you know, that's also part of it. He teleports into the building. He doesn't have to get through the, yeah, but, you know, he teleports in and all the Amazonians are standing there, and, like, maybe one of the younger ones or something says, you know, why did we leave the stone out in the open? And another immediately responds, the energy field it gives off prevents us from encasing it in stone. There you go. And from the Wikipedia for the comics characters, she has superhuman strength, speed, durability, and longevity. Flight in comics, skilled hand-to-hand combatant, utilizes lasso of truth, indestructible bracelets. Boomerang in comics, tiara, sword, and shield. And from IMDb trivia, Gal Gadot practiced kung fu, kickboxing, sword fight, jiu-jitsu, and capoeira as part of her physical preparation for the role. And I maintain she really sells it. You know, her exotic appearance and accent make you buy that she is, you know, more than human. Her, you know, physicality also, you know, have you buying that she's incredibly strong and fast. And yeah, I maintain that, you know, you buy her. I think also in the free cast they talk about, oh, she's not that good of an actress. Again, I haven't seen her in, yeah, I haven't seen her in much, but I think she does great. The only thing with her acting is that because of her accent and the fact that she's still, you know, the whole ESL thing, there's like two big monologues in Wonder Woman, in the solo movie, where she trips a little bit over some of the words and such, and that, you know, it hurts the scene a little bit, but I don't know, I guess no matter how many takes they did, it still got like that, or maybe that was still the best take, even though those were still the best takes, but that's really the only thing. But again, maybe in other movies she doesn't. Honestly, she seems like she's mostly just exotic sultry, so maybe she wasn't really trying very hard before, or maybe that she has a harder time selling that. I mean, she seems like an incredibly sweet person when you just see her in like an interview and such. And yeah, her Wonder Woman is incredibly sweet, which is exactly as it should be. Now, in her solo Wonder Woman movie, Gal's smile lights up the screen. It disarms even faster than her strength, speed, lasso, and sword. And, I was hoping she'd get to smile in this, and she does a little, but, I don't mean smirk, I mean smile. And, I was wondering if the other members would do, and certainly Barry does, and some of the others do, but, yeah. I mean, seriously, from what I can tell, Wonder Woman's almost the only time Gadot gets to play anything other than exotic sultry and exotic badass. She's exotic badass in this role as well, but still, let her do more exotic happy. There are countless other women who look great in a bikini. Not saying there aren't also a ton of women who look stunning when they smile, but there aren't enough in movies like these. And, in her solo movie, Wonder Woman doesn't always dodge every hit. Not every single attack goes entirely as planned, but she recovers really well. And this is true of, say, Steve as well. And they also work together with her, sometimes jumping into combat and her allies helping, and, I figure that should definitely be in this, and I would say there is at least some of it, and I greatly appreciate it. It was one of countless humanizing elements, and, I get that the in-universe explanation for not having it in this would be that she may well have trained in the century she's been gone. Despite not fighting, at least not in man's world. Now, Gadot said of the solo Wonder Woman movie that it's a very different Diana to the one we saw in Batman v Superman. I do hope that we see more of the optimism, hope, and joy she did in her solo Wonder Woman film, and yeah, there's not an awful lot of it, unfortunately. And, in the solo Wonder Woman film, she had the idealism of classic comics and, say, the classic Superman films, albeit updated to today's sensibilities. Heck, if handled poorly, Diana's speeches to military leaders and such could have come off every bit as tone-deaf and oversimplifying and painfully naive as Superman's speech at the UN about nuclear weapons in Superman 4. See, the reason there isn't peace is that the people just don't want peace badly enough. Now, I did not care that much about Batman v Superman and Wonder Woman. Too dry, bland, boring, like everything in that film except the things that were obnoxious, like Jesse Eisenberg's Lexi Luthor, and his terrible theme tune. Seriously, he makes me cringe so hard it hurts. Physically. Now, in trailer 4, Wonder Woman versus, I think, the villain, now that I've seen it, yes, the villain, looks kind of cool, but I'd be lying if I said it looked that different from a climactic fight against the villain in Batman v Superman and in Wonder Woman. And yeah, now having watched it, kind of, yeah, they don't really know how to make her action very distinct from that. And the thing is that basically what would be necessary is if like when she fought, maybe if at least one of these, when she fought the villain, he like made copies of himself, so she had to fight several really powerful at the same time or something. But when she just fights a big, possibly somewhat glowy, extremely powerful being with her glowy lasso and the braces and all this, yeah, it just doesn't, it ends up looking the same each time. And yeah, and like in her solo movies, she does heroic deeds, she saves people. It's not like, any fight in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman where the hero is not a hero because they make regular people safe, but because they punch bad people really hard. And, in the case of Batman, sometimes with bullets and such. Now, so yeah, I rewatched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and then, of course, Lindsay Ayla's excellent video on it. While watching the movie this time, I gotta admit, it did get me really close to emotional a dozen times or so, and I also got close to emotional on rewatching clips from Wonder Woman's solo film. And the following notes, and some of the ones I already went through, are from rewatching clips on YouTube of the solo film. I said in the review of the solo picture itself, but the movie truly does convey every single value you'd want to convey to a young girl, and reaffirm them for women of every age. It's such an inspiration. It is exactly what superhero comics, and movies based on them, are supposed to be. The hero embodies all we aspire to be, has her do countless heroic and cool things. She looks stunning. She's not perfect, but that doesn't mean she's going to stop fighting for what she believes in right, what she knows she should do. She's not too proud to apologize when she does make mistakes. She's not so proud she'll never accept advice and guidance. She can forgive, she can learn. She won't just wait for others to do the right thing, she'll lead. She can accept help. When someone else initiates a good tactical idea or such, she isn't too proud to, or so headstrong she will, go against it. And she'll work with them. If someone innocent or good needs help, she will fight to provide that. Even if she needs to learn how to help first. When she smiles, we smile. When she's upset about something, it reminds us that we're allowed to be upset about that thing. She can fight but knows it isn't always the right thing to do. She's educated in addition to being a great fighter and physically capable of great feats. She speaks her mind but listens when that is what's called for. She isn't pushed around, doesn't push others around, but she does ask that others do what is right and doesn't abide by those who don't if they have the power and ability to. She respects the values and cultures of others but calls them on nonsense aspects. And, she's not familiar with sex with a partner beyond theory, but she's not a prude about it, nor does she or the movie feel the need for her to be sexualized, to be an object for the pleasure of men. She sexualizes herself on her terms with informed consent. And that's another thing a lot of people have pointed out. This movie sexualizes her a ton. All this, I don't want to say sucker punch, but it's not necessarily that far away from this kind of, panty shots, as Film Brain points it out in his great video on it with Jesu Otaku. But yeah, and ass shots, and the camera going up behind all of them, where the ones other than her have strategic butt coverings. Again, free cast credit. Now, and she's open to new experiences. Again, back to the solo movie. In fact, she wants to experience the world beyond what she knows already, but she isn't blindly jumping into just anything. She follows what is going on. She accepts, eventually at least, that there is good as well as evil in all of humanity. At the start of the movie, she believes that there is only good in humanity, no evil. That not all war is due to Ares. She's allowed to be feminine in addition to fighting, not shamed for being a woman, rather celebrated for it. A fully realized person, not just what her mother wants or what society demands. She may go against some of that, but not just because, not all of it. As she considers it, understands it, accepts that her mother only wants what she believes is best for her, and that society doesn't need to be torn down or rebuilt because its views on women are outdated. And yes, it is unfortunate that sex with a man is basically such a huge part of her motivation. Once she experiences, she didn't seek it out, though that would of course also have been alright, as long as she prioritized doing the right thing before doing the right guy. The movie couldn't retcon the stupidity of Batman v Superman saying that Wonder Woman withdrew from the world because she lost her boyfriend, seeing out the Holocaust, Vietnam, Trump's entire campaign. We haven't seen her do a single thing to stop him now that he is president. And that is apparently Gadot said of Wonder Woman 2 that she has been out in the world, but incognito, which is very different from having withdrawn from the world for 100 years. Now, I don't think I said it in the Wonder Woman review, but it made the deflecting bullets with the wrist bracelets look really cool. This is something everyone knows Wonder Woman can do, but it's kind of become a joke. Most people know it from the 70s show, where it, by today's standards at least, looks silly. And this Wonder Woman looks badass today, as she should. And, you know, in a clip shown in the Joe Low video review, Wonder Woman throws the suitcase about to explode up in the air, entirely clear of the building, and somewhere Scarlet Witch goes, oh, right, next time. I'll get it right next time. Seriously, is that an intentional reference, like how Civil Wars fight, in which Vision is almost immediately taken out by a human being who uses regular weapons, you know, human weapons and gadgets, i.e. Hawkeye, rather than it being an extended scene just because they wanted it to be a whole scene? Certainly they stole the fastball special, you know, one person throwing the other through the air, using X-Men 3, and it is the X-Men's move, and the Avengers. Now, I have only seen her in Night and Day in the DCU, and I only know that, you know, I rewatched Night and Day not long ago. Still love it. I mean, stand by everything good I said about it. I had forgotten that, you know, I didn't watch that movie and go like, man, I gotta watch more movies with that, you know, that one character in it, you know. Yeah. I mean, I would have known by looking over her credits for this video, but yeah, rewatching it maybe a month ago or so, you know, I was like, oh, hey, that's Gal Gadot. And man, she plays characters like that so differently from Wonder Woman. Now, Ezra Miller as Barry Allen Flash, a Central City University student who can move at superhuman speeds with his ability to tap into the Speed Force. And we, for the comics character, immense superhuman speed, agility, and stamina, high intelligence in comics. We haven't really seen it in the movie. Regenerative healing in comics, air manipulation in comics, enhanced mental capacity in comics, electrokinesis in actually, yeah, I think that one might have been in this. Body vibration to phase through objects in comics, time travel, dimensional travel via cosmic treadmill, and I guess that's what we saw in Batman v Superman, otherwise comics. Time and speed force manipulation in comics. And, you know, again, the crack people said, you know, Flash is going to be funny, he's going to steal scenes, and I was wondering if he was going to try too hard at making funny, and, you know, in general, if anything, the film tries too hard, and I don't, not frequently at least. And, you know, wondering if anyone else is a joke, like Thor with Hulk in Avengers 1 and Thor Ragnarok, and not really. No characters just completely not taken seriously for that. I wouldn't say, at least. And I've only seen him in the DCU. And Jason Momoa, yeah, as Arthur Curry, Aquaman, the heir to the throne of the undersea nation of Atlantis, whose metahuman aquatic abilities and superhuman physical attributes originate from his Atlantean physiology. And we, for the comics character, superhuman strength, speed, and durability, Atlantean aquatic physiology, telepathy, and mind control of aquatic life. And that's really only hinted at in this. And I think they should have just straight up gone for it, used it. Maybe it's a cut scene. And, you know, they definitely needed to distance him from the Super Friends portrayal where, in the Car's words, his superpower was using a water scooter. The man rules the sea, 71% of the planet. Most of the animal life on Earth is at his command, including those of the deep sea, creatures that can survive, even thrive, under extreme conditions. And, you know, watching the trailers, I wondered how many times is Aquaman going to go, woo, and yeah, and such. And, you know, we do see he has a larger vocabulary than that, but seriously, he's on his way to becoming a king. Do we really see the leader of a country speaking like a child, having ridiculous hair? Well, unlike Trump, at least he doesn't BS his way out of military combat. And his water sports are just about keeping fit. And yeah, crank people put on the Aquaman, the actor in general, sounds like a surfer dude, and yeah, that's quite true. And there's also this, I forget if I said before, but yeah, this kind of like biker wrestler kind of, the way he talks and moves and such. And yeah, I think that's, you know, it doesn't bother me much, at least. And, you know, for him being supposedly the Wolverine of the, you know, the way he talks and moves is very distinct from Wolverine. So that I greatly appreciated. They didn't copy Wolverine, because Wolverine in the X-Men movies is Wolverine from the comics. Whereas this Aquaman is very different, but he is in a lot of ways similar to the Wolverine character, so just transplanting him would not have worked. Would have been incredibly frustrating for anyone who actually cares about the character before this movie. Now, Aquaman doesn't join the team at first, and in the Avengers, everyone basically agrees immediately to join the team, and personally, I think it works. I know it bothers some people. I don't. I think that each time the recruiter just gives them good enough arguments for it, you know. I suppose in the case of Iron Man, it may have been Pepper Potts giving him incentive, but yeah. Now, personally, I did not understand why he went to Atlantis when he did, why he joined when he did. I have only seen Momoa in the DCEU. Oh, wait, he was he like on Baywatch? The original Baywatch, maybe? I watched some of that back in the 90s, you know. There wasn't a lot of good stuff on TV, so, you know, it was one of the tolerable bad things. Now, Ray Fisher is Victor Stone's cyborg, former college athlete who, after being cybernetically reconstructed after a nearly fatal accident, has powers that allow him to manipulate energy and to turn his arms to cannons. Very Mega Man. And Fisher portrays the character through the use of motion capture for the cybernetic portion of his body. And now, the lineup in this film is based on the founding members from the New 52 origin story, with the exception of Green Lantern. During the Silver Age origin story, Martian Manhunter was one of the founding members, who was replaced with Cyborg in the New 52 version, who was previously was known as one of the founding members for the Teen Titans. Now, Kieran Hines as Steppenwolf, the alien military officer from Apocalypse who leads an army of parademons charged by his nephew and superior officer Darkseid with finding the 3 mother boxes held on Earth. The character is described as old, tired, and trying to find a way to escape his role in servitude under his nephew. That's really not in the movie much. What is in the movie is him saying mother to the mother boxes a lot. I thought that was just his way of saying mother box or something, but apparently, again, cut from the movie was the fact that his actual mother was in the box or something like that. Could they really not have, like, changed line? Just each time he says mother, just have him say mother box. You know, just dub it over or something. You know, if you can't reshoot him. Although, I mean, can't you just change his mouth? They already did that for the mustache removal. So yeah, it's super distracting. You know, again, personally, I just figured, okay, he's saying mother because they're mother boxes. But, yeah, you know, a lot of people are going to find it really distracting. Now, Hines will portray the villain through use of motion capture and received some advice in the process from Liam Neeson, who had recently done some work in A Monster Calls. And we for comics characters, superhuman strength, durability, longevity, skilled tactician, and wields electro axe. I loved him as the Devil in Ghost Rider and Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance and Hitman Agent 47. Those are what I've seen him in. Now, Jeremy Irons, Alfred Pennyworth, Wayne's butler, chief of security, and trusted confidant. I've seen him in Kafka, Lion King, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Lolita, The Man in the Iron Mask, The Time Machine, Kingdom of Heaven, Batman v Superman, and Assassin's Creed. Now, Diane Lane as Martha Kent, Kent's adoptive mother, Connie Nielsen as Hippolyta, Princess Mother and the Amazonian Queen, J.K. Simmons as James Gordon, Commissioner of the Gotham City Gotham City Police Department, close ally of Batman. They gave him the thick stash from the comics, and I feel that it worked fine. It wasn't like super distracting. And, you know, the DCU so far has been resistant to using some of the more comic booky aspects of the comics. And yeah, I think it works. I've only seen Simmons in the Spider-Man movies. And, you know, Terminator Genesis. Forgot to note that for some reason. Characters minor. Excuse me. Now, Joe Morton and Robin Wright reprised their roles from previous films as Silent Stone, scientists at Star Labs, and Victor Stone's father and Antiope Apollo's sister, and Diane's aunt and mentor, Bill Crudup, and yeah, several of these were cast, but Bill Crudup portrays Henry Allen, and let's see. Mark McClure, who portrayed Jimmy Olsen in the Christopher Reeve Superman film, has a cameo as a police officer. And Mira, who's more fun than television, is in this. She's played by, you know, I'm not sure I know the name. Did anybody hear the name? You know what? I think Amber Heard. And I've seen her in Zombieland and The Ward and nothing else. Now, to expand on what I said in the main review, Morton basically, he's saying, in dealing with this cyborg tech, we've learned things we never would have imagined if this one or two objects hadn't been discovered that clearly aren't from either our time or this planet. Characters, the team. Now, this is the third live-action appearance of the Justice League after the failed TV pilot Justice League of America, and then their appearance in Smallville, which I quite enjoyed back when it, you know, yeah, that team up and those characters and their characterization I quite enjoyed, though I will admit I don't remember it too much anymore, but I loved it when I saw it. That was, you know, Smallville was, you know, not everything about it was great, but I do think a lot of the time where they just specifically took stuff from the comics and put characters like that in the movie, I think really worked. Although when it started, I had not at all expected them to bring in such major elements from the comics. But, I mean, it ran for like, what, 11 years? Of course they were going to. It would have been ridiculous to not have any of these. Yeah. Now, but yeah, I don't think I watched the Smallville episodes featuring one or more of the JLA members more than once each when they first aired, at least here. So yeah, I barely remember it, but I did rewatch Linkara Nash's review of the failed pilot. And let's see. Batman v Superman was pointed out to be a Batman movie featuring Superman, and I was wondering if this was going to be a Batman movie featuring the JLA, or it belongs to another character, or divided, albeit not always equally, between them, like both Avengers films, both Guardians films. Honestly, I'd say it is the team overall. It is about the... But, you know, Batman is one of the major, like, driving... Yeah. Now, trailer 4, and I'm almost certain this line is not in the movie. I had a dream that the world was ending. Well, other people predicted that Trump would win too. And... yeah, trailer 4 made it look as though at least one fight will have at least one long take with every single character, the camera moving around to show off their skills, a la both Avengers films, you know, which probably Joss Whedon's work. And, you know, I was wondering if it would be cool to just remind us of the superior Avengers films. I'm almost certain it was in the movie, and I don't know, it might have been one cut or something, but yeah, I think it worked pretty well, and it wasn't too similar to the Avengers one, but it does help that at the end of the day, I don't know, I guess, I was gonna say that the climax wasn't too similar in setup to the, actually, I guess it is fairly similar. Too many movies use that basic setup for in these comic book movies. Now, some of the action is dynamic, and there's fish out of water comedy, but none of it is as awkward as some of the Superman 2 stuff. Now, Flash doesn't need a lot of setting up. Cyborg maybe does. Aquaman might. Wonder Woman has gotten a solo film, but you know, yeah, I was wondering if any of the setup would be forced and rushed on a Suicide Squad. Yeah, some of it where you really, honestly, I'd say with Suicide Squad, I got why the various characters were the way they were, what they wanted and didn't want and such. And yeah, honestly, with Aquaman, I couldn't quite place him for a bunch of this movie. But yeah, you know, Avengers 1 did not have a lot of background for Black Widow and Hawkeye, but there was enough development of them to keep us invested. And, you know, I will admit, at points before watching this, I dreaded that it could be as bad as the 2005 Fantastic Four, or even Batman and Robin movie, but no, not by a long shot. And there aren't really vehicle-on-vehicle action scenes like The Dark Knight Rises has, and yeah, it's very simple. Only the good guys use vehicles, or in some cases, horses. That's another thing. In the Amazonian action scene on Themyscira, you know, again, you see them on horseback, and that's pretty cool. But they use that thing where they like hang from a rope and they fire arrows and such. They use that again, like they did in the solo film, and like the braces thing, they make it even bigger, and that's really cool. I feel like for a lot of they legitimately found a way to make to give the characters cool moments with their stuff and make it big for, you know, and memorable. And there's a lot of use of powers and a number of heroic deeds, memorable villain actions. Now, I was wondering if this was going to make some major dumb change to the status quo, where Man of Steel made Superman a murderer, a kinslayer, Batman v Superman killed him off. Yeah, I don't think there really was one, which is another of the course corrections of, like, you know, yeah, I don't know why I didn't note them here, but, you know, let's see. Actually, I guess Wonder Woman didn't especially have one. Suicide Squad. Maybe not, yeah. I guess that's why I didn't write them then. Now, let's see. Jesse Eisenberg was set to appear as Lex Luthor, and Kiersey Clemens, who I only know from Neighbors 2, was supposed to be Iris West, but their scenes were apparently cut. Now, you know, I already mentioned the original Superman theme and the original Batman theme were used, and I was wondering if, you know, some of the others would have, and it would be as awkward as in Batman v Superman. If they did, they did it subtly enough or used it well enough that didn't really. I think they probably had some music specific to them, but it didn't take away from it. It wasn't distracting. See, that's an example of, yeah, just in general, Snyder's use of music, but I talked about that in other videos. Now, yeah, now that I've seen them in action, how do I feel about the casting of Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman? Let's see, Flash, I'll admit, I don't know that much. I think the Flash I know is not, you know, I think it's one of the other ones. It's maybe I forget the name, but you know, Dave of Cinemas Not Site talks about in the midnight screenings the second Flash, who's very funny. I think that's the one I'm more familiar with. But for what we're given in this, and for like what he looks like in action scenes and such, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely, you know, if they get to it, I'll definitely watch the Flash movie, although I really hope that Flashpoint will not be the first Flash movie. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. The way they do this movie, you would really think that The Flash was the next solo movie, not Aquaman. Now, Cyborg, you know, there's more focus on the tragedy than I'm used to from Teen Titans comics, but yeah, I like him fine. It's that thing where he doesn't emote that much. I mean, there's a point in the movie where he, yeah, it's not really a spoiler. There's a point where he actually says "booyah," and I like that in the comic, but here it really felt out of place. That I wish that they had done more of the movie like that with this somewhat lighter one, because it's just, he's kind of boring. I mean, you can understand the tragedy, but he just does not express very much emotion. And I mean, you know, someone like Dr. Manhattan doesn't express a lot of emotion, but you're still invested. He's interesting. And at the end of the day, this cyborg is not that interesting. He can be cool, but yeah. And Aquaman, I enjoy him a lot, and I do think, I mean, just his physical appearance and the way he moves and such, you believe that this is not just a human being, you know. And yeah, I think he's pretty good. Again, it's mostly the characterization that I'm not entirely sold on. Now, Willem Dafoe previously appeared in American Psycho opposite former Batman Christian Bale and current Joker Jared Leto. So, yeah, that's cool. Dafoe just he isn't in this. He was cut. Now, in March 2016, producer Charles Rowan said that Green Lantern would not appear in any film before Justice League Part 2, stated that they could, they could put Green Lantern in some introduction in Justice League 2 or part of that in the movie after. And yeah, I already mentioned in the other review, he is in the, you know, not current Green Lantern, but there is, I think there's at least 2 Green Lanterns in the movie and just in a, you know, backstory flashback. And that, yeah, that probably is what we're going to get for, yeah. I don't know, I could imagine, and, you know, the Green Lantern Corps, I think is what the movie's called. I could imagine it coming out before Justice League 2, but yeah, you know, they really have to be careful about what they make, because so far, I mean, some of the ideas are just completely out of left field. You know, Suicide Squad, it was made because Guardians of the Galaxy did well, but Guardians of the Galaxy was basically Marvel. It was Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios going like, I bet we can make any crazy Marvel idea work on screen because this is going so well. And to their credit, it's not like they just, you know, put it out there and didn't put effort into it. They clearly knew what they were doing with it. But yeah, Suicide Squad, you know, DCEU really does not have that kind of, yeah, it was an obvious and cheap attempt to cash in. And yeah, they really have got to stop doing, to stop imitating the MCU without also being able to properly back that up. You know, I mean, certainly Man of Steel, I mean, other than the fact that it's very Batman Begins-y, let's see, what MCU movie could you say it's similar to? I mean, certainly there's some Thor in there, with an early scene of Kryptonian action or Asgardian action, and then, you know, spend a lot of time with him posing as a human and trying to cope with, you know, this kind of not quite belonging here, and this idea of what he will be in the future and such, and then the climax has him using his powers and confronting, you know, some of his own kind, you know, and you know, Kal-El didn't know Zod the way that, you know, Thor knew Loki, but it is still, you know, and they just have different ideas of how their, you know, what should be the future for their species and such, and who should rule and such. And yeah, I mean, it makes some sense to use to have a movie similar to that, however intentionally or unintentionally. But a lot of people didn't like the Thor movie, you know. I mean, it would have been impossible to be particularly close to the Iron Man movie, although that movie was also very Batman. Or, it's not that bad. It's more that, you know, several first movie in the franchise movies of these comic book movies, you know, Iron Man and The Amazing Spider-Man and such, have had this Batman Begins thing of the hero starts to build a thing and then uses it and then realizes he has to make some changes as he goes and such, which before Batman Begins was not quite the, yeah, you know, it just, not in the same way was it the approach, but yeah. And I'm not sure Captain America, yeah, Captain America really wouldn't have worked for Superman, which is ironic because they're very similar characters. But the first Captain America movie and Man of Steel, you could not have made those two movies, like, yeah, incredibly similar. That would not have worked. And for some reason, the document has now scrolled to the bottom and the screen is black. And I'm not racist, I do prefer being able to read the notes. And here we go. Now I just have to scroll further. And oh, excellent. I was much further along than I thought I was then. I am on or past page 10 of 12 now. So this video is not going to be insanely long, provided that I can eventually read my notes. I mean, the thing with trying to make Man of Steel like Captain America is, among other things, that it takes a long time before he gets to do something heroic. He's being rejected by everyone. Excuse me. No one gives him a chance to do something heroic for a long time. Whereas, yeah, really, Man of Steel, I mean, he's doing heroic deeds from from pretty much the start of the movie. Right away when we see him, he is doing heroic deeds. He just has to then move to another place while he, but yeah, I mean, it would have been really frustrating for a Superman movie to not have heroic deeds. That, again, you know, really, they're I'm not sure there's a single Superman movie since '78 that doesn't very early have him doing something heroic, not just something superhuman, which obviously, you know, the 1978 movie has him showing off superhuman skills from right away, but he also does do heroic things from fairly early on. And this is where I start to consider if I maybe just have to restart this whole thing, because it has clearly decided that black is the new white for notes. So, and I mean, one thing that Captain America has, which Man of Steel, you know, a chunk of Man of Steel doesn't have a clear villain. You know, Zod is at the very start, and then he's in, like, the second half of the film. But between those, he's not. Yeah, the movie doesn't really have a villain presence, whereas Captain America introduces its villain before any of the heroes. I mean, Man of Steel introduces Jor-El before Zod, and yeah, yeah, that would have been, you know, again, big part of Captain America is the fact that there is a war going on. You know, the whole movie is about this war going on, and that I really am glad that they didn't try to copy that and make Superman be introduced during some war. I think it worked really well for the Wonder Woman movie, but I don't think it would have for not the first movie of the DCEU. That's another thing, you know, Wonder Woman, I mean, it's movie 4, I want to say. Yeah, movie 4 of a series, you know, and yeah, and it came out 4 years after the first one. So no matter what, there was at least some, you know, built-in interest for it, and like also because that movie is so similar to Captain America. And yeah, I mean, hypothetically, let's say that right after, I mean, the Thor stuff is, at least it's not completely, you know, overwhelmingly there, but yeah, the Captain America 1 movie stuff in Wonder Woman is so, yeah, so hugely similar to the, let's see, oh my, we are almost there. Holy crap, I think we're there. We're there. And I apparently misread it. I'm on page 9 of 12, not 10. So here goes. When the parademons first show up, you know, I was wondering if that was going to be as weird and out of the blue as in Batman v Superman. The character, yeah, I already talked about it in the review, and it's really not a spoiler. Batman does expect the parademon to show up, but the audience did. I mean, I did, because I just watched the Joe Blow, you know, video review of it. But other than that, you're not necessarily going to. So yeah, I don't know if that was like an intentional, it was supposed to be like that, because yeah, it was, yeah. And yeah, the heroes mostly fight parademons, so it's not such a problem that they're killing tons of their enemies. You know, I'll grant that the MCU has an easier time. Their heroes are not as known for never killing to the regular viewer, and they have more of a knack for making the faceless goons obviously so evil that we don't sympathize at all when they're killed by the dozen. And really, I mean, yeah, you know, Batman v Superman, Batman certainly kills dozens of people. So does Iron Man in his first movie. Captain America, I'm almost certain in his first movie. You know, yeah, really, and Thor kills an insane amount of ice giants within a very short space of time in the first Thor, and then in you know, Ragnarok, he kills a ton of Surtur's goons at the very, very start of the film, and yeah, so now, and you know, yet again, someone punches someone else, so they fly through a building's wall. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman. Yeah, you know, the Suicide Squad, I'm not... I think Suicide Squad has it, but with, like, glass. And, yeah, they definitely are trying to make that a thing in the DCU. Now, every MCU movie is bursting with great character interactions. The team-up ones are especially fun because the filmmakers managed to balance all these strong personalities, give them all something to say and or do to express themselves and their interpersonal relationships. The DCU has some. This one really doesn't have as much as it should. There's too much of the movie. Cyborg basically says and does almost nothing. Aquaman just stands around while things, you know, they're active in action scenes, but not in character scenes. Flash says a ton, and Batman says a bunch. Wonder Woman doesn't say all that much either. Now, this movie needed to capitalize on Wonder Woman because her solo film just came out and was popular with everyone. Once again, it needed to get us super hyped for Aquaman since his solo movie is the next to come out. And that's the one that has, like, a definite, like, you know, it is being made and it's going to come, you know, again, look on Wikipedia, you know, there are not that, they have a lot of ones that they want to make but are just on, but, you know, Aquaman up next. And, yeah. It failed at both. Wonder Woman is forgettable in this, and you won't take much notice of her if you go into this not having watched her solo film or otherwise being interested in her in this. Aquaman can be annoying with the adoption thing. I mean, if there's tragedy to his backstory, go into more detail than I was left on a doorstep and the reply she had to protect you. Tons of people are adopted. They don't all get broody and emo. It's cliche, boring, bland. Anyway, the biker dude wrestler kind of characterization was pointed out by, I think, the Nerds people, is fun. Some will walk away finding him memorable, but they could have done a lot more. I mean, again, you know, the Wolverine thing, not every single X-Men movie featuring Wolverine will have this effect, but certainly the first one. If you watch that movie, you want to see more of Wolverine, you know, and some of the other characters as well, but definitely Wolverine, and same for the second movie, possibly the third. And, you know, I mean, this solo movie, the first solo movie might have you thinking, that was way too much of Wolverine, but, yeah, let's see. Yeah, you know, if you don't know Thor before watching the original Avengers film, you walk away knowing who he is. You know, personally, it made me even more excited about more Thor. If you don't like him, that's probably because he's not the type of character you like. You know, they weren't trying to force him into something everyone would like, and this Aquaman kind of was. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, at this point it is beyond cliche to have this brooding kind of major male action hero character. We are ready for something new, you know, and that's where, you know, it's so gratifying today to see when you get to see a movie where the male action hero isn't all brooding and such. You know, I forget exactly what movie it was, but I know I saw something like that in one of the more recent, I mean, I would definitely say that Terminator Genesis, it you know, isn't broody, and yeah, you know, the two major male action heroes in that are not broody at all. And there is a little bit of, like, you know, distrust and, like, maybe they don't, you know, maybe they're not fighting the way they're used to and that, you know, bothers them or something, but it's not like they don't sit around and brood. But yeah, you know, this Aquaman was, and I don't think it quite works. In general, the characters aren't as defined as the two Avengers films and Civil War. I really love the recharacterization of Pa Kent as hopeful. That, or they have car keys on Krypton. Now, maybe when Flash accidentally says to Wonder Woman, "Hi Flash, I'm Wonder Woman," and then realizes he got it wrong, she should react the following way. Look as if she's furious at him. Maybe he immediately backs up a little and she walks closer, not letting him put distance between them, saying, "I am Diana of Themyscira, and you will treat me with respect." Sorry, that's a terrible Gal Gadot impression. And then there's like a second or so of pause. Maybe Batman looks like he's trying to figure out how to break up these two superhumans. And then she smiles that Wonder Woman full smile and says, "Just kidding. Hi, Flash." You know, she does announce herself like that some in the Solo movie, but she can also be a lot more calm and natural. It would show her poking fun at herself and her self-seriousness, but not too much so. Again, both of those qualities very much established and used well in the Solo movie. Rewatched for review. And this was what I used to put at the start of the notes, and it was at the start of these notes for, you know, until like yesterday or something, so for, you know, weeks. Because this is the section where I talk about stuff that has very little to do with the experience of watching the movie. It's something I want to talk about for each of these movies, but it really isn't, you know, when the movie is fresh in my mind, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. So yeah, from now on it's going to be after I've talked about all the new stuff I have to say about the movie. Now, I've watched every DCU movie as well as every other live-action from 1978 onwards Superman and Batman film. Between my library streaming and my VHS collection, I can watch them all for free and completely legally and everything. The rest of these are DVDs, either my own or my library's. Director's cut of 2004's Dawn of the Dead. I feel like Drew Goddard watched the end credit sequence and went, "I could build a whole movie around that concept," and wrote Cloverfield. Some of the best zombie designs and death scenes of both zombie and people in any zombie film ever. You can really see the influence it had on Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Heck, Zach liked the bit with the propane tank so much he reused it in Soccer Punch. Sucker. Although Soccer Punch sounds like an interesting spin-off to maybe a boxer. Like, it doesn't say anything about in the rules that a boxer couldn't play soccer. Anyway, I have to imagine Hank Hill openly wept during those scenes. And that opening credit sequence. And I own the original trilogy too. And again, I really don't think I'll be doing videos on them. I don't think I know enough about the horror movies and zombie movies of, you know, yeah, of the time, of the decades where the original trilogy came out. Rewatched 300. A few times we see Xerxes' face on the Persian coins. What sucks is that every time he gets another piercing, they have to make all the new coins to match. It takes forever. It's a real pain. And 300 number 2. Fittingly, I'm also playing Assassin's Creed 3 for the second and final time, and though it's not gory, seriously, both have ridiculous executions. How many times do you need to stab a guy? You gotta love the AI logic in those games. That one person who dresses completely different from everyone else around, who may even be openly carrying weapons, might he be someone we should be watching out for, since, depending on who we are, we likely know we have enemies, maybe even that they're close by and hidden? Never mind. He's no longer in my view. Maybe he's just sitting on a bench or standing in a group of other people. Clearly he's not dangerous. Assassin's Creed 3 was when guards... Yeah, when guards complaining about you being on rooftops or such finally stopped saying, "The roofs are not for lowly scum like you." I get that they're saying I don't belong and that I suck. I've understood that message since kindergarten. But are they implying that, like, upper-class people do belong on rooftops? And really glad I've decided I'll never play Assassin's Creed again, and that I stopped at 3. So many times the game series messes up because it thinks you want to climb that thing, it thinks you want to jump like that instead, despite what buttons you're pressing. Look, Ubisoft, if I wanted the experience of everything going wrong despite me doing the correct thing, I would be living my life, not playing a video game. And rewatched Sucker Punch. As many problems as that movie has, and it definitely has many, pointed out by Film Brain, J.O. Rod Hilton, though I don't agree with everything they say. It is incredibly well made from like a technical audio-visual perspective, and in general, Zack Snyder movies are, yeah. Meanwhile, why is one of the only 2 non-blondes in the group called the one called Blondie? Did they seriously name the Asian one Amber? How is there no licensed game? By far Snyder's most video game-like action scenes. If you let yourself be thrilled by them, they're spectacular. Really, the action scenes are all music videos, as is the opening scene and both credit sequences of Dawn of the Dead. Yes, the action is nerd pandering, but unlike most of Paul W. Anderson's work, it is very competently made and fairly consistent. Baby Doll is almost lobotomized, and Sweet Pea is like, stop! Evidently, it is not hammer time. Baby Doll shoots the rigid airship, making it a lead zeppelin. Blue confronts the girls and is suddenly obsessed with chicken metaphors. This was never my story. It's yours. Now don't screw it up, okay? What, you mean like sticking a lame twist at the end? I think that ship has sailed. And I cannot look at Oscar Isaac these days and not see Apocalypse. It doesn't help they keep calling him Blue. I'm like, just wait, he'll be way bluer soon. Rewatched Green Lantern. Hal's family might as well have been cut entirely from the movie. The Ring agrees with me. It transports him away as soon as it can. Whenever driving, Hal is clearly allergic to watching the road. We can talk and drink. You're a ventriloquist? And, you know, creepy dude that looks in her, he's like, I can see your memories. And she's like, and then she's like, you've been exposed. And he's like, he figured out some way to beat it at age 13. I spent my life doing it with lots of chicks. I'll admit, there's a little humor, and I just forgot to breathe. There's a little humor in the film that actually lands, and that movie has real superhero movie envy. The training sequence has Sinestro make a shield to block, which he then throws at Hal, exactly like same year's Captain America 1, and yeah. And Sin City, because why stop at one pitch-perfect Frank Miller adaptation? Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. You can trust me. This man is our enemy. Sorry, that was supposed to be a question, that second line. V for Vendetta, because why stop at one botched, if entertaining and immensely well-made, which is the best we can ever hope for, Alan Moore adaptation. And no, I'm not saying I agree with the politics of him nor the book, and that I don't consider my politics closer to those of the film than those of the book. But they are distinctly different, and it is supposed to be an adaptation, not an original work inspired by the comic. A movie that thinks its audience is so stupid. If Natalie Portman's character didn't say, that's quite enough of that, thank you very much, we wouldn't know that the movie disagreed with the hatred spewing from the mouth of Prothero, the dude on TV. He just called America the ulcered sphincter of Ass Erica. It's pretty clear. And I do still love the Wachowskis' action scenes. I mean, James McTeague, who wasn't at all guided by the Wachowskis. DVD is on my shelf, and the film is on my list of movies I'm considering doing videos on. I'd almost definitely reread the comic. Yeah, any excuse to read and reread Alan Moore. And yeah, rewatched Watchmen, and to avoid spoilers, let's just say that character A teleports character B to inhospitable location C. She can't breathe, and he's like, what? Oh, right, lungs. For all I've said against it, and I stand by it, I do have to appreciate that they didn't change the ending any more than they did. The twist could easily have been altered, as so often happens with big Hollywood adaptations of beloved works. I've heard a TV series is being developed by HBO, and originally it was Snyder, and, you know, I mean, there's a chance that as long as someone else went in and changed things. I mean, from what I hear, the ultimate cut sounds like it gets a lot right. But then they gave it to Damon Lindelof. I mean, I stopped trusting that man before Lost went off the air. And I rewatched The Dark Knight. Excuse me. Poor William Fichtner, done in by his inability to count to 7. Anyway, except for Wonder Woman, I rarely watch anything in theaters more than once, and it's so recent the copy only just arrived. You know, I ordered it like, let's see, not yesterday, day before yesterday. But yeah, I did watch every clip I could find on YouTube, which is a lot of the film right there. But yeah, other than Wonder Woman, at least twice each, and at least once recently. Now having watched Suicide Squad a second and third, twice within less than 6 months time, I could say with great pleasure that these times I did really get into the action scenes. I stand by everything I said in my videos on it. Folding Ideas, Renegade Cut, and the abridged script breakdown, everything that's wrong with it. And in general, I rewatched and reread those 3 material on these films. I did not rewatch Catwoman because I don't own it and no library here streams it or lets you rent it. Something I'm very grateful for. And you watching Man of Steel, I was sure the government would come beating down our door, but no one ever came. Did you consider that maybe you should have done more foreplay? I have to say, on rewatches, Man of Steel just does not keep me engaged emotionally. It loses me at Krypton's end. It's mainly due to the chronological jumping and how that mismanages the themes by undermining the tension before the film has even set it up, as explored really well by Folding Ideas. And I rewatched reviews and other videos and reread abridged script on the aforementioned films too. I guess I already mentioned the abridged scripts. And that was it. So at 2 hours, and the other one was at least an hour and a half or something. So yeah, 3.5 hours. Yeah, that sounds about right for a recent movie. Maybe it's not such a bad thing that I only do this for the comic book movies, but yeah. Again, I hope this is as much fun for you as it is for me. I've reviewed other parts of this franchise. The links are in the description box. Please comment, thumbs up, and subscribe for more content.